Hello and welcome to this special May 2018 edition of the Plympton Podcast. I'm Andrew Hill. This month, our programme is a special tribute to Ellis Daw, founder of the Dartmoor Wildlife Park. Ellis established the park in 1968 and ran it until it closed in 2006, after which it was sold to the Mee family. Ellis passed away recently at the grand old age of 89. In 2012, I recorded a long interview with him, and that's what we're going to hear in this month's podcast. Hello, Ellis, and welcome along to the show.
Hello, everyone.
Now then, you, as I understand it, were born in Lanson.
A long time ago.
Okay, and are you proud of your Cornish roots?
Oh, yes. I've lived in Devon most of my life. I'm proud to be born at St Stephen's in Lanson or Launceston, whichever you call it.
Well, that's right, because it's one of those towns that has different pronunciations to it. And how long were you in Lanson for?
Oh, I moved out when I was about 5 years old.
So you don't really, I suppose, remember that much about it, do you?
Well, yes, I went at first school. I just went to my first school, and they put me in a nuns, run by nuns.
All right.
A girls' school run by nuns, and I was put in there for the first 11 months.
Right. So what, you were the only bloke there?
Yes.
Right, okay.
My dad used to do that occasionally. You've got to look after your sister, he says. You go in the girls' school.
Right, okay. So I suppose that's what started you off in a rather unusual life, I suppose.
You could say that.
Now, you've launched a book, and we'll be hearing more about that later on in the programme. And for many years, almost 4 decades, you were the owner of Dartmour Wildlife Park out at Spark. We'll be hearing about your times there. But as I understand it, you started off in farming, is that right?
Well, yes. The family were farming, and my father, he did Daw's cream, his clotted cream. And so although we farmed, he made cream and sold it always, you know. And so I was used to farming. And in the war years, that was nice because you had more to eat than most people. And I've always kept in touch with animals, farm animals.
And you had farmland, in several places in the local area?
Oh, yes. Yes, we moved, not that many times, but from Launceston, I think we moved to a place called Simla, which was then taken over by Beecham and pulled down to put his railway there. And then we went to a little house called Worley. I'm only pulling your leg, it's not little. At Tamerton Folia.
Right, okay.
And he farmed there.
When was it your family moved to the land that you went on to occupy at Sparkle then?
In 1948. We were in a fort at Lara, Crabtree then, farming there.
And so you moved to Sparkle, and you farmed the land there. So what sort of head of cattle did you have there at that time?
Oh, you used to have about 30 head of Guernsey crosses because they produced better cream.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
That's the ones he kept.
Mm-hmm. So you carry, and did you carry on the creamery business there or not?
Yes, he sold cream. He used to do a round in Plymouth, picking up swill to feed the pigs and different things, and he said his cream as he went round on that.
So you had this 30 head of cattle that you were there and producing the cream and doing your Dawes creamery business. So what led to you venturing into the wildlife park business?
Well, as I said, we lived in a house called Simla at Goodrington in the 30s, and if I was a good boy, my granny would take me to Payton Zoo, which was only a little walk away. And there were the animals behind bars and little cages, and I thought, oh, we got our cows in fields, open fields. Why can't the animals be in open fields? Why behind bars? And that gave me the thing. I would start something myself one day, and I did.
And what did you start off with in terms of your first animals?
Well, as my book says, from the lamb to the tiger. So we had lambs and badgers, foxes, and guinea pigs, rabbits, and everything like that to start with.
Now, clear up one thing for me, because I saw you did an interview in the Herald with Martin Freeman, and you were at pains to point out that your venture out at Sparkle there was a wildlife park and not a zoo. To the uninitiated, what's the difference in between a wildlife park and a zoo? What's the difference between the two?
A wildlife park, the animals are kept in open spaces more. A zoo is more pens, cages rather, you know. And I didn't like that. My tiger enclosures were the biggest built. In fact, I helped to design Payton Zoo's lion and tiger enclosure, and I've done several throughout the country. I like them in the open. You don't have to have a ceiling because it's a tiger. If the fence is high enough and electrified at the top, they will not jump out.
Now, Alice, before you launched the wildlife park, I gather you were in the Home Guard for a while. Tell us about that.
That was in the early 40s. I'd always done a lot of shooting and hunting for food in those days. It was a different world, remember, in the 30s and 40s. And I was in the big yard of the fort one day, and I saw 3 old guard men come marching in, over to my dad, and I talked to Dad, and they pointed down the yard to me. Down they marched to me. Well, here you're a crack shot, Ellis. Here's your 303. You will come every night into the city to shoot at the Luftwaffe. And that's what I did. I was in, just like that.
And what age was that?
Well, I was born in 1928, 38, 12, 13, 14.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And was that unusual age to join the Home Guard?
No, they took OAPs that could just walk and youngsters because they wanted all the men were fighting abroad, you see.
Yeah. And I read somewhere about you shooting some plane over the Plym.
Ah, yes. See, we were up on the top of the fort. You were high up. Don't forget, the planes weren't so fast then as they are now. And they used to come in up the Plym, looking to go, and you could see the pilot and you could see the rear gunner. And the Home Guard said, first bullet at the rear gunner, second one at the pilot. Because if you miss it, he'll turn the machine gun on you. So I did that, and I got the pilot with one bullet. And he veered off into the thing down like that, into the Plym.
Right. Did it actually land in the Plym? Or
I didn't see what happened. It went through the Saltram trees and on in the field. I was told it hit in a field over the other side of Saltram.
Okay. All right. And another passion years ago, I gather, was stock cars.
Oh, yes.
What got you into that?
Well, it was my mate Freddie. He said this was coming to Plymouth. He said, let's have a go. He said, we do a lot of driving. Let's get an old car and have a go. So there was a talk at the Belgrave Cinema. So we all went up there, and this man came and did a talk on stock cars and what to do. So we bought one and went up to Plymouth Stadium, which was a beautiful stadium in those days. And I started my first race up there. I was at the back of about 30 cars. I thought, I'll see what they do. And I ended up second. And I won 20 quid. I was laughing.
And there's some story, and I saw a picture somewhere or another, almost of you like doing an Evel Knievel stunt with your sister in the car, was it?
Yes. Later I put on the Hellfire Stunt Hellfire Stunt Show, and we travelled from stadium to stadium, and after a stock car race or in between the meetings we would do these stunts. And my sister Maureen, who was 12 years younger than me.
And what did your dad think of that thing? You told you had to look after your sister, and there you are with her in the back of a car doing that stunt.
That was a different sister.
Oh, right.
But he said that when I went to the stock, he said, total rubbish. And then when I started bringing back the money, so carry on, son, carry on.
And how many years did you do that for?
Oh, right through the 50s, 60s, yeah, until I got a lot older, and shifted, for quite a few years. I'm still on the committee.
All right.
I go up to Coventry every January on the meetings up there, and we have a dinner and dance, lovely, and stay overnight in a big hotel and come back again. Okay.
And has your interest in stock car racing developed into the sort of cars you drive for ordinary motoring there or not?
Well, I'm a Jaguar man.
All right.
Jaguar's a car I love. I've had, this is my 10th in my lifetime, and I just love the Jag.
Because, if I remember correctly, wasn't there some sort of Jaguar enthusiast weekend out at the Wildlife Park some years ago? Yes.
That's correct. I put on that, yes, and it was very popular. We were packed full, all sorts of Jaguars lined up. Very good weekend.
Now, you were telling us that you started taking in animals because you wanted to give them open spaces and so on. And when you started doing that, was it the ambition to have a wildlife park, or did that just develop separately?
Well, it started with a small, and it worked up. Then I was told I had so many animals that people said, why did you open to the public, Ellis? You've got all these animals, why don't you charge them? So I decided I wouldn't. You had to fight the council all the way along the line in those days, health and safety and all that, non-stop. And then I opened up, and about 48 people came up the first afternoon from the village and around. So that was the start.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and after that initial influx of people, how popular did it become?
Oh, it grew and grew. It was successful. I got the big cats then, and bears and other wolves and other animals, which I loved, and on it went.
Mm-hmm. And you had school parties and that come out from time to time, I think?
Oh, yes, regular supply. We had an education officer which went to schools, taking some animals with them, all in the area, in say a 40-mile circle. Mm-hmm. And it was very popular for schools.
Yeah. What would you say was your highlight at the park?
Well, I think breeding my first tigers. I love the tigers. I bred some 47 altogether. And they went all around the world to other different zoos and wildlife parks because of endangered species, the Siberian tiger. And I thought, well, this is helping, wildlife. Mm-hmm.
And I saw a review in one of the review sites on the internet where one person was saying, well, this is one of the only places where you can come along and take photographs of the tigers without having to take them through either glass or wire. Was that something you particularly were keen on when you introduced that to the park?
Yes, definitely. They got a wall and a dike, a water-filled dike, and there are the tigers standing looking at you. You've got to judge it right, too far for him to jump, of course, and you could take a picture of the tiger sitting up on the rocks, and that, lovely. No fence in between.
Yeah. Now, that was obviously the pinnacle of the park. You did ever come in for a bit of stick, I think, over the bear pit, didn't you? What's your view on that? If you were starting again from scratch, would you have done that differently or not?
Well, we had a bear that was in the zoo, and they wanted to move it on because they I don't know, for reasons they did. So I said, all right, I'll take it. So I put it in a big stable block that had no roof, and put a thing across, and it had a concrete floor. The councillors, they moaned at that. But then I saved the money, and I built a huge enclosure, which they're in now. These things take time.
So basically, it wasn't your plan when this opportunity came up. It wasn't an intention to get bears. The opportunity came, and you had to put them in whatever facilities you had at that time.
Yes, and I got some more to go with it, so the group of 3.
Obviously, the tigers you're proud of. What other animals in particular did you bring to the wildlife park?
Lions and a puma, the mountain lion, I don't know what name you use it for. The one that's free in England still, you know. Jaguars, or kept jaguars, I love them. And wolves, lynx, and of course birds, flamingos, all sorts of birds, and falconry. We had a falconry there, and all kinds of birds of prey which were flown every day.
Come the end, can you remember roughly how many animals there were in total at the park?
I reckon it was over 200.
I see in a paper article you were described in that as being eccentric, maverick and anti-authoritarian. To what extent would you accord with those attributes?
Anti-authoritarian, is that, do you mean fighting the council?
I think that was what they had in mind in that description, yes.
Oh, well, yes, because they had one idea, you know, hey, did the cat in the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. Ellis, if the cow can jump over the moon, your tigers can jump over that fence. Stupid.
And there was an incident a while ago in the Plympton Ridgeway where there was a chap who quite regularly used to walk up and down with owls, and then he got banned from doing that for a while. And I think you were quite outspoken about that,
yes,
weren't you? You had some views on it.
And he's still a regular now.
And you've got some photos of that.
Yes, he's a nice man. He looks after the owls. He's kind to them. They're not worried. They like it there, and it's very popular.
And I think the council were concerned about the health and safety aspects of this. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I've seen him doing that. They did not try and flutter or fly. It didn't distract people. He was far enough away from the road. And I think, no, it's a good thing. He's still there every day now, and people love him. And
you had owls, I think, at the wildlife park as well. Tell us a bit about those.
Many sorts of owls. The big eagle owls right down to the little owls, you know. And they're lovely birds, owls, and they're very tame, and you can fly them also, same as birds of prey.
Yeah. At the wildlife park, when you were there any particular animals you became attached to?
Yes, a tiger called Sylvester. I was very fond of him. And we had him for many years, I think about 14 or 15 years before he passed away with old age, you know. He was lovely, lovely. You could put your arm through him, pat him on the head. I loved him.
And what about the birds? Were they the sort of animals you could have more of a relationship with or not?
Yes, we had a lovely eagle that I was very fond of, and that one was very tame. It would sit on you and talk to you. And a caracara that would put his head for you to scratch him in between, and he's still up there now. I
remember going, because we did a programme, it was probably about 20-odd years ago. We actually came out to the wildlife park and we went around and were guided around and did a recording which probably went on for about an hour or more. And if I remember correctly, there was it a white cockatoo called George? Does that ring a bell?
Definitely a white cockatoo.
Was it called George? I just had in the back of my mind that was the name of it.
Yeah, my memory's slightly off on that one, but I see the cockatoo perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was in it was in like a big open wooden house, and yes. We went in, there were loads of birds there, and I do remember that white cockatoo. And I think even now you've got a parrot, haven't you, domestically?
Yes, Rosebud, little Rosebud, okay. Little Rosella, and she talks in nattles to me all day long, and she loves watching television.
Okay. For those who are listening to the programme and are thinking of pets, what would you recommend as being the ideal pet?
Well, I think cats fit in very well. They're quiet, they're nice, they're not troublesome. I have one, and I had two. They were called Starsky and Hutch. Well, when I moved houses, I let my daughter have Starsky, and I've got Hutch.
All right.
She's a Persian, she's lovely.
And that was after the cops, the cop programme on TV, I suppose, wasn't it? Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was. I remember that. What was it? There was a red car with a white flash down it, wasn't it? It was part of that program.
Yes, yeah. But I thought the name suited the pair of them, you know, so that's what they were called.
Yeah, all right.
But they were given to me by somebody who was moving to Australia.
All right.
And they said, "Could you take these cats?" I said, "Okay." And they were two males, neutered males, Starsky and Hutch. I called them when they brought them in. They said, lovely. And they moved to Australia, and I'm looking after the cats.
What was that something that happened quite regularly? Were people coming to you asking you to take animals? Did that happen a lot?
Yes, they would bring animals up, yes, all through the time of the park especially, you know. People were moving away, or somebody had died, and would you look after this one, you know. We used to accommodate wherever we could.
Yeah, okay. What are sort of main changes you've seen in your life?
Oh, well, they invented the telephone, electric light, and or everything. White lines in the middle of the road to show you which side to be on. It's so different, absolutely different from what it would be in the... Well, I was born in the 20s, well, I didn't know a lot then, but the 30s, like the pre-war days, very different world.
And probably difficult for people of the modern generation to understand the differences.
Yes, well, you've got better things like a hospital like this, which you didn't have then, you know. You'd have to ring up your doctor and get him to come to you. That's if he had time. It was, you know, a lot of things have improved greatly.
The wildlife park, as you owned it, closed in 2006. Was that a planned closure, or was it something that was against your wishes?
No, when I shut it, you mean, I closed it? No, my family did not want to take it over, the children and that. They didn't want to do this. They moved out and moved away. And so I thought, well, I'd better set it up in case I had a heart attack or stroke and left things in a mess. I thought, better I organise a sale and set it up. And so that's what I did.
Because it closed for a period of what, almost a year or
yes,
thereabouts, didn't it?
Yeah, the council did that.
So it wasn't possible then to keep it going and just have a straight handover to the new owners?
Well, that's what I did. They paid me for the business, mine and the land. The land belonged to me and the house and all the rest of it. And they're managing all right now.
And was it a disappointment to you that your family wouldn't take it on?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I carried on from Dad. Dad carried on from Grandad. Why didn't my children carry on from me?
And now you live virtually at the bottom of the wildlife park. How difficult is that, living right on the doorstep of what used to be yours?
Well, lovely. I could hear lions roaring in the night and the wolves howling, and I go up for a little walk around from time to time. And I can look out of a window and look up the drive and see. No, I like it. I find it very, very nice. So
it gives you pride to see that what you founded is still going on, albeit under different ownership.
Yes, definitely.
And there've been changes that the Mees have introduced. What are your thoughts on what they've done during their time of owning it?
Well, different from mine, but everybody has their own idea. So they're doing what they think is the best way, and I did it my way.
Okay, now we all know, of course, that the Mees have written this book, and theirs has gone on to be serialised as a film. But we're here today to hear more about your book, From the Lamb to the Tiger. Tell us about what inspired you to do your book.
Well, I thought, I've had a very interesting life. Why not put it down for others to read? And that was the idea originally, an autobiography. And I thought, well, long after I'm dead, they can still read about me and that. And it's, as I say, it started with 3 lambs, the tiger, with my daughters, on to tigers and the big cats, apart from the racing, the stunts and all. I think it's an interesting book, and it's had good results.
Now, how difficult was it to actually get this book published?
Oh, well, I wrote it over a period of 8 years. I had a little dictaphone which used to carry me everywhere. And when I thought of something, I'd speak in the dictaphone. Then when the tape was full, it'd be taped out. Then I lined it all up, a lot of work to get it correct, and then tried to find a publisher. Eventually got a publisher, and I got it done. But it takes time, loads of time. It's amazing how long it takes. But the book is as I wanted it. But you have to pay if you want the book your way, and if you want pictures in the middle as well, you have to pay extra. But anyway, I've done it, but the publisher sadly has gone into liquidation.
Right.
So now I've got to organise it again to go on again now. So that's the job I've got set for me now.
Right, okay. But the book can still be obtained
yes,
at the
I
moment.
still got quite a lot of copies in my house.
Well, if anyone does want a copy of one of these, how can they get one?
Well, they'd have to either ring or write me.
They can contact us through the studios here and we'll pass
Yes, I'll give you a phone number
easier.
And address and all that, a card with it all on.
Yeah, okay. Well, if anyone wants to make inquiries, they can contact us here at Hospital Radio, 763-443, and we'll pass the details on to Ellis and you can liaise that way. So this book, you said you took 8 years, so it was always your plan to do this book. It's not been a reaction to the Mees story in their book.
No, I started doing it 8 years ago. And gradually, it takes quite a while. I know. I see some in the paper. I see somebody wrote a book in a month or 6 weeks. Oh, the heck they did that? I don't know. Right. I had to live 80 years before I could do this.
and give us a flavour of some of the things that people can hear about or read about in this book.
Well, it tells you about the pre-war days and the home guard and the fighting and the war, people killed and different things. Also, how I built the wildlife park, plus my racing and stock car racing. throughout the country as a stuntman and with my sister, and right up through work I've done in councils and different things. It's a little of everything throughout my life.
Okay, and how many pages are there roughly? You're going to look at it and tell us.
There's quite a lot.
I mean, it looks a fairly thick book there, looking across it.
226.
Just for you, the Plympton Podcast.
Now, Alice, we were talking about your book, From the Lamb to the Tiger, and one reviewer's comments was that it is an indication of how a sharp pair of scissors is the only answer to red tape. Is that something that really comes across there in the book?
Yes, snip it off, and that's the end of it.
You were telling us about your run-ins with the South Hams District Council. In the early 2000s, I think you were also at odds with the Captive Animals Protection Society. How much of a problem was that to you?
Oh, they weren't too bad, because when they came up and looked at how we're keeping them, they kind of went much more easy on it, because the animals were in big spaces, you see, and that. They did at the beginning, before they come up and look. They were down the bottom of the drive, holding up people coming in one day. So, well, come up and look for yourself. Tell me what you think. Come up and look. And after that, they were easier on that. I didn't have a lot of trouble after. I
mean, there was some criticism, wasn't there, about the state of some of the pens and health and safety concerns. But I think you were at pains to point out the lack of any incidents over the years.
Yes, it wasn't. No incident, no escapees. The animals are healthy and fine. In the large enclosures, they could not jump out. I went into in great detail to find out, to make quite sure they could not possibly jump, dig or get out.
But you were at one stage being prosecuted or under threat of prosecution by the council for 16 charges, but most of those, I think, fell by the wayside. Tell us about that particular incident.
Well, yes, if I remember going back, we went into a court, the judge there and that, and sit down, and he said it was ridiculous, and one charge. And that was that. See his face.
and that was the one that did succeed was over the Siberian tigers, I think, wasn't it? What was all that about?
I can't remember. Have you got it there?
My understanding was that it was something about it wasn't part of a breeding program, and that's the criticism that was levied at you.
No, they were afraid that I'd get inbred, but they were wrong. There was a cousin or two in there, but then with human beings there were cousins, and there wasn't that inbred. And I got my tigers from others, and the jaguar I got them from abroad to make sure that they weren't inbred, you know. They weren't inbred like they thought or said they were.
Something I was reading when I was doing some research, was it one of your first pets was a guinea pig?
Yes, I've had guinea pigs all my life from a little boy.
Right, okay.
I've still got about 10 or 12 now.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes.
so it's one of those things that's been a lifetime want of a pet for you?
Yes, because see, when I was a little boy, they weren't that common in this country. They come, as I think, from Abyssinians that they originated from and that. And I remember going in Old Plymouth Market in the 30s and seeing these couple of guinea pigs in a cage for £0.50 each, and I'm going to persuade my father to buy them for me.
So, I mean, you were mentioning that cats are a good family pet. So for children, you would suggest perhaps a guinea pig, would you?
Yes, they don't bite. They're lovely. They're clean, lovely, easy to keep. Excellent.
You're back living in Sparkwell. What brought you back to the village?
I've never left. When I sold the park, I moved to Houndall, which was about a quarter mile across 3 fields, a bit longer in the road.
I see.
And then I moved down to the bottom of the park now, because I'm getting older. I don't need such a big house. I've downsized like we do when we get old. Well,
you're telling us there about your age, and you started the programme by saying that you've had a long and varied life. Is there still any particular ambition you've got to fulfil or not?
Well, I went to Africa soon after I sold up with my education officer. I promised him I'd take him there. I'd like to go back and have another look at Africa. It was brilliant. See, all the animals I kept, not the tigers, of course, in Africa, lions and that, in the wild, roaming, and they were beautiful.
Okay, so what in particular attracts you to the fact that it is all open space, is it?
Oh, vast open spaces. The animals, you know, it's so big and large. You're going along these earth tracks. They've only got one road over there, that's all proper road. You go on these tracks, and all of a sudden you had to stop as the elephants walked across in front of you. Then we went in this bushy place in the night, went up at night to have a look in the night, and there was an hippo coming up, and he squeezed by, rocking, the Land Rover we were in, rocking. I put my hand out and patted him on the back.
Oh, right, okay. You've never had the burning desire to go and live in a place like that?
No, I like Devon and Cornwall. I like the West Country. You can't beat it.
Now, you've got elephant poo in your lounge, I hear, and that begs the question, why?
Well, I had a holiday in Africa. When I sold up, I took my education on. We went to Africa to look at the animals, as I said, in the wild, natural surroundings. And I thought, well, what can I bring back that remind me most of Africa? Well, I thought, the soil, the African soil, grows plants and trees. The elephant eats the plants and trees. It goes through the elephant, comes back out and into the soil again. So I took a lovely elephant poo for a reminder.
The Plympton Podcast.
We talked about the highlights for you at the Wildlife Park, and they were for you your tigers and the big cats and so on. What for you was the low point there?
The low points? Well, really, only fighting with the council from time to time. Not so much the council. It was health and safety, ELF and health and safety. It was those really, not the council themselves. They were all right. Because I was on the Spark. Well, I still am on the parish councils now. 3 of them on the Stockard Council, you know, and at times when you don't take enough money quite, and you've got to borrow from the bank, then it comes up again. You pay back and go on. Oh, businesses and life are up and down like that. And there'll be times when you're a bit down, and other times when you're roaring ahead.
Mm. And was it often a financial struggle to keep the park going?
No, I didn't feel any risk at any time, but you had to play carefully. Business is a business, you have to be careful. But no, in the winter time you wouldn't take so much money, then it would come into spring and Easter like now, and it poured away then through till the autumn. And people came from far and wide to visit the Wildlife Park in its time, didn't they? All over England and that, even from abroad, and even when I've been abroad, people have come to me and say, oh, hello, aren't you Ellis from the Wildlife Park in Sparkwell? I said, yeah, I went there on holiday. Now, you started this programme by telling us that you started off with lambs and so on. How difficult was it to acquire the knowledge needed to look after all these other species that you brought into the park? Well, I've read books, studied it, visited all the zoos I could, talked to people, keepers, and really went out of my way, because I've got 2 cats in the house, 1 cat in the house, and a tiger's not that different. Well, yes, he is big and savage and could kill you if you did it wrong, but they're the same sort of way to eat and feed and look after. And I do remember the tiger cubs actually used to be brought out onto the green, and children used to be able to interact with them. Was that sort of thing, interaction with the animals, important to you? Yes, it is, because we used to handle them as soon as they were born. So then the cubs, they got to know you. So as they grew up, they were used to being picked up and took out, and the mothers didn't mind it because the mothers were tame. And so then I thought, well, what an opportunity for a child to handle a tiger cub. They remember that for the rest of their life. And you must have been a reasonably big employer in the local area there during your time. Yes, quite a number of staff, and I did try to employ local if I could, everywhere local. Mm-hmm. We had some experts in that already, like curators, but otherwise I employed local people. And how much of a wrench was it for you to have to say goodbye to those people when the park closed down in 2006? Well, I still see them, I'm glad to say. No, we aren't forgotten, and we meet and still see them, and so it's not like that. And as I say, I live at the bottom of the drive now, so I can look up at the park when I get up in the morning out my window, and there we are. And do you still actually go in there from time to time to look around? Yes, they allow me to come and have a walk around. And that brings us on to the final thing we're going to talk about now, because you have actually got a granite stone there, and you preserved some rights to that. Tell us about that. Well, yes, I thought, where do I want to be buried? I thought, well, I'd like to be on the park. Well, you couldn't be buried, you have to be cremated. So I bought this great stone I got from the clay works and had it brought down, and then I had it cut completely with everything except the last date when I die. And on the bottom, in case anybody was a nuisance, I put, here's to those that wish me well, and those that don't can go to hell. And that's carved in at the bottom. and so that's going to be your legacy then, really, there in the park, isn't it? Yes, because Mum and Dad's ashes and my big elder sister's ashes are there, so mine will join them one day. And so it is that Ellis's ashes will now join those of his family members at the park he founded. And that brings to an end this special edition of the Plympton Podcast, a tribute to Ellis Daw, who died on March the 14th, 2018.
The Plympton Podcast.